Alex, how are you?
Hi, Jason. I'm doing very well.
We
I'm
have so
excited
much
be
to talk
here.
about.
About what? What are we going to talk about?
So we're recording in Las Vegas, HR technology.
Yes.
I don't want to talk a lot about HR technology, but I want to talk about how the world is changing.
Okay.
And because the world is changing, how HR needs to change. And I know you're spending a lot of time thinking about it. And when I say thinking about it, like we're in the early innings. Maybe not even early innings, like the early first batter here, where we're kind of saying like, hey, we're just starting to think about what this might look like going forward. So I'd love for you just to kind of open your brain and talk a little about the thinking you're doing as someone who's been in this space for a long time. I can say that now. And starting to say, what's the future of HR and how does it operate?
Yeah. You know, Jason, you mentioned a long time. We worked together at the beginning of my career. I had the opportunity to be a client, which was so influential in my thinking. And I tell this story sometimes. I started my career at Time Inc. We were a print publisher, and we sent reporters into the fields with BlackBerries in 2012.
Blackberries.
Yeah, like you'd get bombed at and you'd have to type on your QWERTY keyboard.
Oh, not that kind of BlackBerry.
You don't remember?
Sorry.
I still have one. I actually gave it to my daughter the other day to play with. And we would create these, again, these great brands. We had 90 magazines, and we would scan the covers and put them on websites, money.com. We'd put it on the website, and you'd click on it, and you'd subscribe to get more print magazines. And we were trying to figure out how to turn into a digital media brand company from a print publishing company. And I was in all these questions, all these conversations being asked, all these questions that I really had no idea how to answer at the time. I was mostly there because I learned how to write people code, which I think is your fault, by the way, for how hard it is to code or was to code in PeopleSoft. I think that's...
I'm not going to take full credit.
You can take full responsibility, not credit.
Yeah.
And I remember being asked a question once that's just changed the whole trajectory of my career. I was asked, which of our print editors can become digital media brand leaders? And I panicked because I had learned how to write this deep 7-layer VLOOKUP to get to who a print editor was. But I couldn't even tell you what skills a digital media brand leader needed, much less who could become one. And as I watched the company just fail to become digital first, fail to figure out how to take advantage of this incredible fan base that we have. I mean, people still look to Fortune for organizations. They read People magazine. Time Inc. is still a household name, but yet the company failed. And when we think about the beginning of this change, right? You mentioned the beginning, and we have...
Because you remember the beginning, right?
The beginning of one of these past changes,
Yep.
Exactly. But I remember also being late. Right. At the time, if you looked at some of our competitors, they'd already done it. They'd created apps and they'd created websites and they'd created, I think about the Huffington Post success. Like we were way late.
But can I ask a question real quick?
Of course.
We're in the middle of a dialogue. I know you're in the middle of a story, but
no, go ahead.
Back to the Huffington Post. They never started with print.
Exactly. They didn't have to transform. But the point was the model was viable. The point was that people were willing to relate even when things weren't printed, that there was an appetite for creating digital interactions that were meaningful. It wasn't just like, oh, we're pushing this off to the internet. You don't get the thing anymore. I remember, my Kindle is, probably 15 years old. And I remember when someone said, oh, no one will ever, people need to hold real books in their hands. And there's a really valid conversation around that. There's meaning to it, but it doesn't mean that's the only way that we want to interact. And we missed the boat. And so I think about, we were reactive. We were trying to save our business. And I believe there were a lot of great people trying really, really hard, but it didn't work.
Right.
And I wake up every day and I think about both my job, the companies that I work with, our company at Mercer, and I think about once you're reacting, it's much harder. It is so much harder to be reactive and to save a failing business than it is to prepare for what's coming and to be ready. And for me,
I've never thought of it that way.
Well,
But it's interesting. Once you're reacting, is it too late?
Exactly. Someone asked me the other day. So I'm doing these challenger sessions where we have these big ideas and we're putting them in front of really smart people in the industry, inside of Mercer, outside of Mercer, and we're saying, break the model, challenge the model. And someone said to me the other day, well, what metrics can I use to show the business that this is needed? And I said, I have to be honest, like by the time the measures are there, by the time the signals are there, it's too late. We can try. I mean, I'm not going to give up. I'm not ever going to just leave you there on your own. But if you're seeing in numbers this type of gap, you're already dealing with significant issues because you have people problems, you have tool problems, you have mindset problems. And we've missed the opportunity to prepare and to be ready. And at Time Inc., we laid off, I'll never forget. If anyone is dealing with this in HR, there's WARN, right? The layoff regulations around you can only lay off so many people in a rolling 90-day period. We built that into PeopleSoft. That's how good we got at laying people off. Yeah, that's how good we got at laying people off, so that every single time we had an opportunity to lay someone off, we did. And we do that on the HR floor. We were still all in person. And so every time I went to the bathroom, literally 1 out of 3 times I was in the bathroom, there's someone crying who had just been laid off.
Wow.
And I just... yes, jobs are going to change, and there will be jobs that go away. There will be more jobs that are created, but I believe that the thing we can do here is to help people not become the collateral of this change. And there's an incredible opportunity. I mean, I love what AI can do in our world. I personally am loving how it helps me raise my children better, how it helps me enjoy my life more by taking certain tasks off my plate, but also opening my eyes to things I couldn't have learned or even begun to comprehend in the past. But for me, the real opportunity is to use it to not let our people become collateral this time through this change. And I lived it it was so personal to me that that's why I do this. And that's the change that we're driving here. And so when we talk about operating model, the operating model is a means to being prepared.
Okay.
It's about getting organizations, our people, our ways of working, our leadership, our capabilities to a point where we're not caught off guard and then we're scrambling.
So when you're saying like that period of time, would you call that internet?
Right now, I mean, we're just borrowing from smart people who are smarter than us for the Industrial Revolution. So it's connectivity.
Right. So back then, it was connectivity that changed it.
Exactly.
So because there are people now that are a little bit confused where they're saying that AI is like the cloud.
I think that, you can compare one change to another change and say, it provides new capabilities like the type of new capabilities that we had when we went from on-prem to the cloud. All of a sudden, you didn't have the same limitations on storage. You had access to more computing power. And it's those types of changes that we'll have, but it's not necessarily, I think that it is bigger, to be honest.
Don't you think that was more of just not just a tech play, but don't you think that was a tech play and we really didn't transform work that much or transform what we did that much? Whereas with AI, it's transforming jobs more. Because cloud didn't change the role of HR people that much. Maybe we had to train them on something new.
I think we missed the boat in HR. But when you look at, for example, all of the major technology players, right? If you look at Meta, if you look at X, they couldn't have existed without the cloud. They couldn't have, the ability to query data and get a response real time from a tweet that someone posted in 2015.
Right.
You couldn't have done that without the computing power accessible through the cloud. And so I think there are businesses and industries and ways of life that have changed. I think we missed the boat in HR, to be honest. And I think we also missed it with, desktop to mobile and the ability to have more access to data and insights anywhere. We still kind of just build as if you're sitting at a desk all the time.
So do you think that, so it's 2025?
Yeah.
Do you think in 2020, I hate to put numbers on things anymore, but in 2027, is there still going to be an HR function?
If you ask me if there's still going to be a function that cares for humans in the organization, I will fight tooth and nail to make sure that is the case.
Now, does that mean HR today cares for humans?
I believe that there are people who've entered the profession for the right reasons because we care about the workforce and people and humanity and we want to focus on it. I don't believe that today we're very well set up to do that at scale. in the HR function. I think that when we do it, it's usually because of manual heroics and, someone going above and beyond, and organizations who have, picked a certain thing and said, I'm going to care about this, right? I'm going to do a really good job at creating people leaders. I'm going to build the right well-being focus. And so I think we've done it in parts, and there's HR leaders, both on the vendor and the services and the internal sides, all of whom you could look to and say, like, that's amazing what you're doing. I think at scale, though, across the industry, there's an opportunity to really raise the floor and to create a different expectation and just a different perception of what we should be doing in an organization.
So in this operating model work you've done a lot of thinking about it.
Yes, it haunts me.
And I actually used one of your graphics yesterday, and I really liked it.
Well, thank you. Jason rarely likes what I put together in terms of slides.
But in the center, there was a thing called constraints.
Uh-huh.
And I really liked the grounding tied to the constraints. Now, you're smarter than me, so it took me a while to figure out what this graphic was supposed to be. But once I did, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what the change is.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? The constraints that we've had in the past or still have,
Yeah.
and then the constraints that we're going to have going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be very clear. I'm the least smart person on our team building this. And so I am, building off of and I have the opportunity to help share some of the ideas of my great counterparts. So it's definitely not uniquely my idea, but I had a conversation with a colleague the other day who was asking me questions about the future HR operating model and said, Alex, before I go into this conversation next week with the CHRO, is an agile pool part of how you imagine HR in the future?
Agile pool,
right? Problem solver pool. Is that part of the future, right? That's the most innovative change we've made to HR operating models in the last 10 years. And so they're like, are we going to have this flexible group of people? Because today, it's a major reason this team can't succeed. And I said, I appreciate today. In the future, if you think about an agile pool in the world of AI, it really doesn't work. If you took a group of, let's just call it 20 people, and you said, business A has this problem. I'm going to take 3 of those people, move them over here. Now, business A figures out their problem, they get, whatever it is worked out, and then they go over here and do this on let's call it business unit B. The amount of time that it would take them to get up to speed on anything is just light years compared to what AI can do in those spaces and how quickly AI could ideate. And every single time we shift them, we ask them to work within a different context. Every time we ramp them, we slow down. Like, we humans slow down the pace that technology could operate. Now, what would end up happening, which we all know how this would play out, business unit A would request those same 3 people next time. They'd say, next time, can I get Jason? He did such a good job last time and he understands us. Can I get Jason again on the next project we have? And what would end up happening is we would try and overcome those constraints of time and productivity and knowledge and skills by just assigning the same people to the same problems and the same teams over and over again. And it's those constraints that we've designed for in the past. We've said, look, it's really hard to get Jason to know all 10 business units.
Yep.
So we're going to assign him to business unit 1. We've created segregation of duties. We've said, there's a lot of problems and it's hard for Jason to know everything. So we're going to make sure that he's supported on the back end by a total rewards expert, by, somebody who's an expert in compliance. We've created specialization of roles. We've said, hey, we're going to acquire 70 businesses next year. I just talked to an organization who's going through that. And so in order to be able to deliver at scale, we have to standardize. And those were the ways that we solved for the constraints that are very real today. But in the future, AI and emerging technology, I don't want to say it's all AI. Some of it is RPA. Some of it is just like simple automation using workflow technologies. Some of it is generative AI, agentic AI, and capabilities that we don't have good names for yet.
Right.
But those new emerging technologies, what they can do, they kind of break down time and productivity. You can accomplish something in seconds compared to what would have taken hours and days in the past. And not only that, the pace of change because of that is so much more significant. And knowledge is completely democratized. We don't have to have that same specialization or those years of training in order to be able to get the information and the basic knowledge. And so while in the past centralization might have made sense, now it's much more about governance. How do we manage those within safe guardrails? How do we prepare for the constraints of the future. And those are things like security and privacy and trust. Yes, the capabilities might be there, but do people trust them? It's not about the wisdom or the knowledge anymore. It's about the wisdom you bring to the table to take that knowledge that you've gotten and apply it. And so in that new model, the things of the past actually just slow us down. Standardization. Things can be hyper-personalized now at scale. Why would we focus on a peanut butter spread approach in the past?
Right.
And so we've looked at what those new things are. Instead of specialization, it's the ability to unlearn and learn really quickly. Instead of segregation, it's transparency. It's connectivity. And so we've said, if those are the new constraints, how do we design an operating model for them instead of something focused on, I don't want to call it yesterday's challenges because they're still challenges today.
Yeah.
Technology is still working its way through resolving those constraints. But by 2027 or even sooner, you'll begin to see some of those constraints go away. And today's model will not be the solution for tomorrow's challenges.
So I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was watching a vendor presentation yesterday, and they said that they don't have AI yet.
Okay.
And it just made it got me thinking about, and I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure that I played it out to you. There's HR systems that are not ready for an AI world, and then there are HR systems that don't have AI yet.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, when we think about an AI world, which is faster, human machines working together, a world of agents, maybe people working 2 or 3 companies at the same time, et cetera, there's a massive difference between HR systems not ready for an AI world and an HR system not having AI yet. Does that make sense? Like, one is like a feature. AI is a feature. And one is saying, we're not ready for an AI world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
I'm trying to figure out which one's a bigger issue.
So when I hear that, I worry that maybe we don't fully understand the technology landscape today. And I do personally think there's a lot of language going on that's a little bit damaging. I think that people are throwing around terms without really understanding how they should be used or what they mean in the tech space. And it makes me a little nervous.
So when you're talking to a CHRO,
and
that CHRO talks about AI, they know how to spell AI. Let's just say they know how to spell it.
I have at least one of those letters in my name.
Right, exactly. But all of that being said, are we talking about a new way of working, or are we talking about code?
Yeah. I think the way I can best communicate is analogies. So I'll give you an analogy. In a car, you have a lot of different parts, and there's obviously an engine. Now, that engine has had some changes over the last, let's call it 50 years. You have gas engines, you have hybrid engines, you have electric engines. At the end of the day, there's not really like that many different types of engines other than one makes you go faster than the other. And maybe something's a little bit better for the environment. That engine sits inside of the car. When you think of a car, you don't just think of the engine. Now, there are a lot of cars that are, they have different purposes. Some people need a truck that you can haul things in. Some people need, a minivan you can fit your however many children in. I don't want a minivan. I'm still having an allergic reaction to this. But then you think about how the car works. And so, do you have a dashboard with a computer in it? And when we talk about a lot of systems, and especially HR technology, many of them are most akin to the engine, right? They're the engine in your car. Now, you could take an engine out of your Honda Civic and you could put it in your Tesla and it would still be your Honda Civic electric. Sure, okay, now I just messed this analogy up. But the point is it's the sensors and the cameras around the car that allow it to be self-driving. It has very little to do with the engine itself.
Okay.
And
it's a great analogy so far.
Thank you. I'm sure I'll find a way to mess it up. When you consider your HR technology, if you're looking to your HR technology as the engine to then be the way that you'd build a self-driving car, it's not going to get you there. And so, sure, there's probably ways to build AI more into engines, like sensors that are a little bit more receptive to things like, you forget to change your oil? But at the end of the day, the AI isn't going to transform the engine beyond optimizing it. It's the body of the car, the driving, the computer, the things like, am I too close to the car in front of me and therefore I should brake? It's the sensors and the things that are around it that really change and transform the ways of, Waymo.
Which some of it ties to outcome, right? So the outcome is a self-driving car, or the outcome is a car that goes 60. Two different outcomes.
Exactly. And, I think about what the outcome was of self-driving. Google X, when they first tried to really take a step back and build self-driving cars.
Google who?
Google, the innovation function of Google.
Okay.
Google X. When they first said, hey, are we going to do this? They defined it as a moonshot. But the moonshot wasn't about building self-driving cars. It was reducing automobile deaths. And they said the main reason that we have automobile deaths is because we can make the cars as safe as we want, but we can't make people safe. We just can't. We can't stop you from texting. We can't stop you from being distracted. We can't, help you handle hundreds of inputs going on around you at the same time. So we'll just remove you from the equation. And when I think about the purpose of that, we're trying to use the wrong tool to get to this more improved capability in HR. So if we keep trying to change the engine, there's no way that we're going to get to that moonshot of creating more ability to focus on humans, more ability to guide the workforce, the ability to deliver services at scale that are personalized. And so when you talk about building AI functionality into your engine, I really have to ask, are you trying to get the core system to do something that we should really be looking to the body of the car, or in this case, another broader orchestration layer to deliver? And so I just think we have to better understand what tools we have and then how to approach them. That was a very long analogy to answer your question.
No. It's a great analogy. So we're at HR Technology 2025. Are we at the end of an era? Or are we at the beginning of an era?
I think in some ways both. You don't have a beginning without an end to some degree. Jason, before we turned on the recording today, we were talking about, could you imagine being 17 right now? Your son is younger and starting on this path. And you have to ask, how do we learn from what's happened in the past to move forward? And I believe you as a parent try and do that. You try and give your kids the freedom and space to do their own thing, but to learn from your mistakes and to, become greater than you. You've done a lot of writing around that. And I think that we're at a beginning and an end. And what's important is that we don't lose what we've learned from the last era. And I think, you and I just mentioned this. We've missed some opportunities to change in the last era. But yet, when you and I started these conversations 10 years ago, the idea of mindset, people, process, and then technology was so...
Did you hear that freight train? I think that we're back in the... in the steam engine era.
It's an AI car.
Oh, okay. Got it.
They just put a diesel engine in it.
Okay.
But, you and I, when we first started these conversations, the idea of mindset, people, process, and then technology, it was not common. But yet every single vendor is talking about it now. And I just hope that we don't over-index on the technology being the answer in this upcoming era, because we are right now. Today it's AI this and AI that and tools this and tool that. And if I put this new system in, it's going to change our ways of working. And we've already learned that lesson in the last era. And so I'd like it to be the beginning of a new era, but I believe that will only really happen for HR if we learn from what we've both done well and made mistakes around for the last, 30 years.
But it seems like, just from watching the expo floor here, that we're still spending more money on the tech than we are on those other components that you mentioned. Or at least that's the thing that gets the attention. That's the cool...
It's the easiest. It's the easiest. Think about, think about yourself, What are some of the things that you've done to improve yourself over the last, let's just call it 20 years as a parent?
I'll tell you something I did last night to improve myself.
What did you do?
I used a new tool called Poke.
Okay. What did it do? Did you poke your children?
I did not poke my children, but Poke was a piece of technology.
Okay.
Okay. Poke is a piece of technology, excuse me. And what it helped me do is it helped me interact with everything connected to me using iMessage or SMS. Okay. So
what did you do with that interaction?
I was able to set up my calendar. I was able to communicate with my kids. I was able to be more human,
right?
Because I had a piece of technology. Now, what excites me is not the technology. What excites me is what I can do with the technology.
Exactly.
And what I'm concerned about is that we're still excited about the technology too much and not about rethinking how our workflows or our human flows work.
Yeah.
And I think that That to me,
Well, that's the hard work, Jason,
You're
that
right.
not everybody wants to put in. And when you think about, I mean, parenting, like it's so easy to go through the motions and just continue. But in my opinion, like those that I look to, that I want to be like, the parents, they're the ones that done the hard work, for themselves. They've looked at the patterns they've built. They've done the reading. They've done the reflections to say, what am I bringing to the table here? And how do I not bring my baggage into parenting? And I think it's the same thing for us as professionals. We have to do the hard work to say, what mindsets do we bring to the table? What baggage do we bring? What expectations? And where might some of those just be completely off? And where can I spend the time to rethink ways of working, to rethink our partnerships and our structure? Jason, I talk about operating models a lot right now, and everyone defaults back to lines and boxes.
yeah.
Like, oh, well, will we still have talent management? Will it report into a broader talent function or right into the CHRO? And I keep trying to tell people, well, what if the operating model of the future isn't lines and boxes? What if it's circles and overlaps, and they change and they morph? And everyone gets so uncomfortable because then they're like, well, what about my job?
Yep.
And it's that, we have to build our own abilities to be able to lead through this. And I think that a lot of HR people look to the technology to kind of do that for them, rather than taking the hard work of rethinking what we did in the past and building into the future.
So, kind of a final topic area around hope.
Okay.
So, I was in India about 4 weeks ago. And
Always an eye-opening experience for you.
For sure. And I made a statement that 70% of companies that exist today are going to be out of business in 10 years. And 10 years was out there. And I think that the reason why is because those companies can't change.
Yeah.
Can't is not the right word. Won't do the hard work to
Exactly.
change.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious as to if you agree with that, disagree with that. I'm not asking something that gets as much press as that quote
No
got.
one cares about what I say nearly as much as what
No,
you say.
no, but just in general, because I don't know I don't know what's right and what's wrong here.
Yeah.
I'm just watching and trying to
Yeah.
look at signals.
That is my fear. I believe, and I mean, the data is there to back you to some degree, maybe not 70%, but if you look at the late 1990s to the, let's call it late 2000s, you saw that 40% of organizations literally fell off of the Fortune 500. Now, not all of them ceased to exist. They just ceased to be as successful as either their competitors or the new companies that were being founded, that were pushing them down. And I believe that change will happen again. I really do. And again, I don't know that they'll all cease to exist, but I think about Time Inc. We believed it was too big to fail. We all did. And when I remember sitting there and saying, how could this happen? And it's fascinating. Most of the brands still exist. Mark Benioff bought Time Magazine. We broke up some into different Southern companies for Southern Living. And it's not that they all just went away. It's that they ceased to exist as the same structure. Yep. And I don't know that that's bad, right? Things need to change and adapt. For me, the real problem was when people became the casualties, the collateral in this change. And so I believe that I like to believe that we have an opportunity to influence the future. Yep. And I wake up literally every day, sometimes I stay up too late, thinking about how we can make sure that doesn't happen. But I believe if we continue without learning what's not worked well in the last 20 years, it is very likely that is the future. And I spend all of my time trying to help organizations prepare. I think if you asked, I remember this, if you asked HR what we wanted to do in 2010, we would have said, we want to be more strategic and we want to have data-driven decision-making. And it's unfortunately too much like that still today. We're trying to build strategic business partners and agile pools and get really good reports. And you need visionary leaders who can help see what comes on the other side of that, right? All of those are just things. They're not the outcomes that we're looking to create.
So 3 questions.
Yeah.
CHRO of today.
Yeah.
What would you say? There's 3 things. If they had 3 things that they could do,
Yeah.
what would you say?
The first thing is walk the walk. It's very hard to talk about guiding the organization through transformation if you yourself are living in a world where you're not using AI, where you're not digital first, and where you don't have good partners. So if you're not walking the walk, I don't know why anyone's going to believe you. The second is I would sit in front of your leadership team and help them to understand that the future feels really big right now, but there's going to be a point very soon where the technology becomes table stakes, just like it did in the last 20 years. And on the other side of that, the value will once again be your people. And if we ignore them through this change, if we only focus on the machines and not the humans in machines, you're going to have a really hard time recovering from that on the other side of it. It's going to be like, I mean, we've all seen reputational damage, cultural damage from layoffs. And if you ignore this through the transformation, I don't believe you'll be able to come back no matter how good you build the technology. And so I would say guiding your organizations to understand human-machine teaming and the emphasis on humans and machines is incredibly important. AI should not be used to find 20% efficiencies and then lay those people off.
Yep.
That's not the goal. And then I think the third is to do the hard work to bring your leadership team along. One man can't do this, one woman can't do this, and you really have to build a team.
And how much of that is a reset? When you say bring them along, how much of it do they have to forget the past?
I think it's like a reset every morning.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say it's a hard reset. You kind of have to. I mean, if you asked me yesterday what Workday was capable of, and then you asked me today what Workday is capable of with the acquisition news this morning, I had to reset everything I would say to clients.
Yep.
Literally in a 12-hour.
So we all
period.
have to be good at that reset every day.
And where I find so much meaning with clients is like there are things they should be good at and there are things we should be good at, as consultants and advisors in this space, and finding the right blend of what you and your leadership and your peer, you can't do everything. You have to pick the areas you want to be great and then build the team around you to supplement that. And so I believe it's more of just a culture of resetting, a mindset of resetting than a one-time hard reset.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You love Las Vegas, right?
I have been lost twice in the last hour. I walked through the parking garage, and then
if
I got
there's
in
one
an
place you
elevator,
could go in the world,
I ended up in another.
If there's one place you
garage.
could go in the world, it would be Las Vegas, right?
Right now, it would actually probably be Venice. I just went to Venice this summer, and I actually felt like I was coming home.
The Venetian?
Okay. To anyone who's ever from Italy, has lived in Italy, traveled to Italy, Jason's sorry that he offended you.
Anyway, thank you so much for being
Thank you
here.
for having me. I'm excited to see the next couple days and the great ideas that are at this conference.
Thanks.
Thank you.